Hey everybody, welcome back to another Film of the Week. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me, my brake pads just suck. Sorry. I've been needing to get these changed. Needing to get these changed pretty soon, hopefully. And I'm off to the beach once again because the tide is starting to come down and the waves are actually looking to be bigger. So I'm gonna try out some bigger sets today. But we're going to be doing a film of the week this week, and this is a special one because I have been delaying this review for quite a bit because I've been needing to talk about this movie because I promised it many months ago that I would discuss it. So I figured as we're heading off to the beach, I might as well just get that promise fulfilled and talk about this very special film. That film, of course, being Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which was written and directed by Elisa Hittman, who, forgive me, I'm not entirely sure, excuse me as I adjust the camera, I'm not entirely sure if it was her directorial debut. I want to say it was, but I could be wrong. I want to say it is, but released in 2020, and this details a story with a teenager, I want to say, played by Sydney Flanagan, and she comes to find out that she herself is pregnant, and the reasoning and how that came to be the pregnancy is very vague, but there are suggestions to that of it not being completely a consensual experience, potentially that of rape and other allusions to what may have happened to her getting pregnant. But in the present, she is pregnant, and she's at the beginning kind of toying with the idea of how to deal with this. Is she capable of taking care of the child? And the conclusion that she comes to is that she can't, and she goes with her friend, played by Talia Ryder, to New York, where they look to get an abortion. The film journeys the struggles within their situation, within their parameters, within toxic environments that they have been brought up in, and ultimately them having to deal with things on their own, them having to find their ways to getting to the abortion clinic, performing the abortion itself, and the morality of them wrestling with ultimately that of killing this child or letting go of something of a future that is potential in her case. Now, full disclosure on two bits. I have not seen the film for quite a long time. It's been about 4 years now since I've seen it, and I remember seeing it like immediately when it came out because I was fairly interested to see it. And for another, I actually have spoken to Sydney Flanagan. I've actually had a exchange with her on social media, congratulating her on the film, talking about her performance, which we'll discuss in a second. So I just want to give full disclosure to this review, just because I just don't want to, I don't want to come off a certain way. I just want to make sure that all that's laid out on the table, and so just full disclosure, just because I just don't want, people to be like, oh, you're this and that. It's like, no. So just so that's clear. Because when I say that the film is remarkable, it's not because of the stuff that's surrounding it, the fact that I've spoken to the main actress, blah, 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 blah. It has nothing to do with that, okay? And this was when I was in that stupid phase, that shilly phase, so that's just an FYI. So, when I was reaching out, saying, oh, congratulations, and whatever, it's just pure coincidence that someone, in that position, or an actor or whatever like that, it was just pure coincidence that they responded back to me. So just to lay that out. But in talking about the film, as I had mentioned up front, it is remarkable, and the reason for it being remarkable is manifold. But to first address, as I've mentioned, Sydney Flanagan, her performance in this is astonishing. I think of her performance in this to be very, very captivating. And it's very interesting because I haven't seen her do other work since then. I think she's done maybe a few films here and there, but more or less, actually, her co-star has gone on to do other work, more work than she would. But she is remarkable in this. Her expression, specifically when we get to when that title comes into play, never, rarely, sometimes, always, the illustration of her character, giving more depth to that character and thus more depth to that performance, it really presents a raw state that is very, very powerful, very quiet, and very, very informative. There's a lot going on in that performance, and it's like with just the subtle changing of her face and the gravity of her situation also at play. It really is complementary and gives that performance so much weight and so much depth. And throughout the film, with her being so quiet and the reasoning for that, why she is so reserved and why she is kind of, for a large portion of the time, on the eternal side. A lot of the film, to my memory, is a lot about, a lot just of shots of her character, of her face, but less to do with dialogue. A lot of visual storytelling taking place. And it's very, again, very informative of the circumstance, because I think that, in truth, the best word to describe the film is informative, because of the subject that it is, wishing to discuss about abortions. It's, of course it has to be extremely informative, and it absolutely is. And I think that on a specific point to bring up, I think that its addressing of the subject, I think, is also very careful and very, very considering. It's not a situation of where you might doubt, why she feels the need to do the things that she does. The subtle suggestion as to why she does these things, of how this pregnancy came to be, it gives all validation to her claim and why she feels the need to do the things that she is doing. And in that you are involved, and you are completely with her on her journey. You're not against her on her journey. You are with her on her journey. So I think that in the representation of the subject, though politically speaking you can get into a lot of debates about the subject, I think that just centrally, just how this filmmaker chooses to approach that subject, I think is very, very careful and very, very understanding. So, and I think that the writing itself is also very, a lot of this information obviously comes from its dialogue and from the literal writing, how it chooses to construct its narrative. But I think that in the actual dialogue, how it is written, just specifically talking about these characters and their age, with them being super young, I think that they are like minors as portrayed in the story. I think, I could be wrong, or at least like 18 or something like that. The language of how the dialogue is literally written, and ultimately how it is performed, it's very accurate to that of a teenager. It's not an attitude that is kind of trying to replicate that or mimic it. It is very authentic in how it wishes to portray that of a teenager, or portray that sort of attitude, And again, that's just the literal spoken nature, just how the performances wish to deliver it. It seems very, very authentic, and it's not showy or meant for dramatic effect. Nothing in the film feels showy, and that is, again, a great benefit to the dissection of its theme, and ultimately the dissection of its characters. There's a reason for why it is so quiet, and there's a reason for why it is very suggestive and subtle. It's all to do with the weight of its subject, and a lot to do with the gravity of that, and ultimately how incredibly difficult it is to be in that situation, and incredibly how very, very mentally speaking, how very difficult it is to go through it. So, and I think that it portrays that very, very well. And like I said, I think the performances are very strong, specifically Sidney Flanigan. I think that she was a powerhouse in this. And And just to clarify again, that's the reason why I messaged her, because I was very moved by it. You know, I was very, very moved by that performance, and especially because at that time I was like in the acting phase and stuff like that. So to see someone who was literally at almost the same age as me doing what she was doing, it was very, very inspiring to see that. So much so that the film actually inspired a screenplay that I wrote. You know, I was just like, in the pandemic, you know, so it was like, so I was so much time for myself, so I was like writing stuff, and one of those screenplays that I wrote was actually very much inspired by this specific film. So it's a very, very good piece, and there's many great elements to it, and I think especially what the performances are doing in the subtleties and in just how they, you know, the careful nature of those performances, and when they choose to be very expressive and then other times very reserved. You know, it's very illustrative of the state of those characters and the mindsets, and in each other, in their bond with each other. You know, how it comes to be, why they are together. You know, what is their driving force together outside of, you know, the established nature of their dynamic. There's other things there, potentially an emotional bondage, trauma bondage, at least to my memory, if I remember things correctly. Like, you know, there's gravity, there's depth, there's dimensions, there's things to the film that is not just about a statement. I mean, because ultimately it is making a statement, but it is a statement that I feel it is very understanding. It's not, I would say, highly political in how it is choosing to bill its, in terms of how it chooses to, deliver that statement. I think that anybody who can, you know, understand the dilemma, I think that it's not something that I think you can swallow and say, well, that's a very controversial opinion. No, I think it's a fact in how it is choosing to represent that. So I think it's very, very good. I think it's a very, very well made piece, and for my money, in terms of the stuff that has been released so far this decade, I know it's kind of bold to say, but I mean, it's only been like 4 or 5 years, so we're almost like halfway through the decade. But this really is the best of the decade so far, and it's just very, very good, very powerful stuff. And I think that it squarely comes from the writing, from the careful nature and in those performances, the solid direction, the crafting of its narrative, how it chooses to flow, the drama that is there, and the depth within it. It's a very, very, very good piece, and I highly recommend that you guys watch it. I think it's now gotten a lot more awareness since it came out, but it's just very, very good. Very, very good stuff. So yeah, so it's my thoughts on Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. I freaking love it. I think it's really, really good stuff. And again, not just because I'm just full disclosure, like, again, I've talked to Sydney Flanagan, I've DM'd her and stuff like that. We've had like a small conversation, so just full disclosure. But it has nothing to do with my feeling of the performance. Like I said, DM'd her because I enjoy that performance so much. So just an awareness, you know. And I was being shilly back then. Totally was being a shill. I don't do that anymore because I'm not a fucking sellout. But I acknowledge, back then, I was a sellout. But I'm not selling out for this movie or any movie. I'm just telling you that this movie is fucking awesome. It's a great movie. So, and you guys should definitely check it out. But if you guys have seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you guys have seen Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. If you guys are familiar with Elisa Hittman, I'm not sure if she's done any other films. I know that she is produced here and there. But you guys let me know your thoughts about this film, the performances, all that stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.